Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel. We appreciate it if you like this video.
Also have a podcast. Check it out in the description.
We're proud to be presented by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Go make yourself a cocktail right now. We love Tito's and sodas.
Crafted to be savored responsibly. This Chargers opportunity is going to be really good for him. Not just because they have joint practices starting August 19th into next week, but then they play each other. And I went back and looked at what it took for Russell Wilson to get to the point you're describing, the week one starter, back in 2012. And you know, I don't know that we've ever done many topics like what kind of line you want to see out of the preseason, but here's an idea of what it was. Now that was a different situation because Seattle did not have an established returning starter, if you know, whatever you want to call Jimmy. I didn't remember it this way, but I went back and read some stories from 2012 today. And apparently there was at least a point in time in practice where Matt Flynn, Russell Wilson, and Tavares Jackson were all getting equal snaps. I think Tavares was the second quarterback in some of their preseason games coming off the bench because Russell didn't play until the second half of the first two preseason games. And he was 67%, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 150 rushing yards in those two preseason games. But they were Russell. But John, those were second half numbers. So then Matt Flynn has his sore elbow. Russell starts the third preseason game. He leads the Seahawks on scoring drives on each of their first 6 possessions. Okay?
Matt Flynn tell anyone to this day if my elbow hadn't been sore, maybe it's me or no?
I don't know. I think it might have been too obvious anyway. Russ was 13 of 19, 185, 2 touchdowns, 58 rushing yards. So I think one thing that now you don't have 4 preseason games, which means you know you have one less kind of wasted game. But I think one thing that could work in the favor of Trey Lance winning this job or trying to win this job is that we don't expect to see much of Jimmy Garoppolo in the preseason. And I think even though this is not ultimately the number one skill you want your quarterback to have, being able to run the ball was not Russell's number one skill, but he showcased in 3 games I got 208 rushing yards from Russ. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch the tape to see how many of those were design runs. But in an environment like the preseason where there's first-teamers and second-teamers and who knows who on the other side, it lends itself to a skill set that can thrive in unstructured situations. And Trey Lance has that. So this is not just us saying wait until the preseason, then we'll see. I mean, that's what we're saying, but we're also saying we think the preseason sets up well for him. Not only the number of snaps he could get, but the style in which these games are played. But anyway, just for reference, like those were the numbers Russell put out in 2012.
One thing that Trey Lance potentially has going for him during next week before the game is obviously the Niner players aren't necessarily holding back, but it's a tough spot, you know, especially if you've been on the team for a while. You played with Jimmy. Like, Juszczyk and Kittle can't just come out and be like, holy shit, look at this guy. You know, Jimmy who? Like, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to get some polarizing quotes from McGlinchey or Trent Williams. More than likely, who knows? It might get to the point where you just, like, start betting on the horse that's going to win. Other team, though, why would they care? Like, if Derwin James talks after practice, Joey Bosa talks after practice, one of their corners talks after practice. Hell, Keenan Allen, just a video goes viral of him, like, just watching the sideline, being like, holy shit, look at this guy. Like, isn't that potential for next week some headline quotes of Brandon Staley, who is the defensive coordinator for the Chargers, to just say, like, this kid looks pretty special? Because the Niners, Kyle is, the day Trey Lance is announced the starter, whenever that happens, it is not going to be some glowing review. That's just not how Kyle's going to act, I don't think. And also, he's going to have to balance it. Jimmy's situation is a whole nother story. But I think next week, because it's hard to tell, like you said, there's one less preseason game. That Seattle situation was a true open competition, right? They're just splitting true reps, playing like Trey's not going to be playing in the second half with just Haberman and Middlecoff flying around there coming at people's legs. Like that's Sudfeld, Rosen's. They're going to have to die for those sins against the Johnny Tryhards of just guys trying to make it's an uneasy time to keep anyone out there that's valuable just because there's so much on the line, right? Guys are truly defensive players are playing for potentially a roster spot, a practice squad spot. like their whole career comes down to like maybe 15 snaps. And you got offensive tackles that just might not be fast enough or terrible, and no one knows the blocking schemes. So his production to me, what good or bad, is going to be easier to like hold, like, because you can always nitpick. Like, happens to running backs a lot. Remember, I guess it happens a lot. Just running backs that have like 200-yard game, but or 200-yard preseason, but 150 of it came 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter against a team. Where you start doing this against a couple of their starters are out there, or just it looks like the Chargers know what they're doing with just solid backups, guys that are playing. It does just hold a little more water.
Quick interruption to tell you to click on DraftKings in the description and use the promo code HAM.
And if you want some meat, butcherbox.com/ham down below. Free lobster tails and ribeyes. Part of Derek, when Derek won the job for Matt Schaub, Pete Carroll historically started all his starting players in that fourth preseason game. And he put LOB out there because I remember being at that preseason game, and this is like the peak of LOB, right? 2014, and watching like Earl Thomas, Cam, Richard warm up. Like, this is badass. Derek, bang, 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 boom, touchdown. 4 straight touchdown drives. Remember, it was 28-7 or 28-0, and everyone's like, and it was over.
Yeah, yeah. And his arm. Look, part of that competition was arm strength. I'm going to nominate.
But remember, that wasn't a competition either, right? True. Kind of was, but it wasn't an open competition.
Matt Schaub was supposed to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm going to nominate Chris Harris Jr. to be the guy that's going to say something next week. Remember Hard Knocks last year? He was on the sideline watching Herbert, going like,
"That's a good one."
He made a couple of comments like, "Oh my god," like just basically like, "Sheesh, you guys see this guy?" I guess it wasn't an opponent, but remember James Jones had some comments about Derek Carr, comparing him to Aaron Rodgers. His rookie year going into that season. But yeah,
don't you think Niners, the reporters that are down there, are going to go up to Charger players and ask them questions about them? Like, isn't that the easy story? You should for us, please.
Yeah, Biederman, paging. And then the other thing, you and I have talked about this a lot when you get to see arm versus arm in the same game, right? Getting to see Herbert's arm and Trey Lance's arm side by side. Is also one of the things that it's going to make for an easy comp. And I think the Chargers are really unique, back to your point, because they just went through this. The guys on that team just went through all of this last year. They just experienced kind of knowing, but having a vet. And, I think, though, to your point,
a guy with remarkable physical tools, right?
Remarkable physical tools. I think Anthony Lynn was more committed to trying to play Tyrod Taylor than Kyle Shanahan actually is to trying to make the path for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I agree.
There was nothing that Justin Herbert could have done to earn the opening week start.
Nothing.
That's not the case, I don't think, in Kyle's mind with this.
I agree.
But, this will be the fun. Now we'll get some more practices throughout the week. They're off Thursday. More practice next week, and then off to the Chargers they go. And it's kind of like, okay, here's some of the beauty of this. If you're like, well, only the people who are seeing him right now, there's not a lot of people. Now you're going to get a whole other media group that hasn't seen him at all yet, right? The reports that we'll be getting, and I'm sure Daniel Jeremiah and Matt Money Smith and Andrew Siciliano and, right? Like, all these guys, these people are going to be there. Bucky Brooks will probably be there.
I mean, you would think the NFL Network will send
Mooch will be there.
That's an easy one. Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are going to be there talking about this next week. So just remember, when other people are like, oh, you guys heard about this Trey Lance? No, it's you guys have been in on the ground floor. You want to get in on the ground floor of this.
It's a good idea. I should text DJ to see, hey, can we get you lined up for like next Friday?
Good idea. Good idea. Tell DJ we can talk all the baseball trades he wants to talk. But, it's funny. I'd forgotten. I went back and looked at 2017 Chiefs. Because Mahomes did play in the preseason. Alex did not play hardly at all. And Tyler Bray was their other quarterback who played quite a bit in the preseason. And Mahomes had a couple of games where he was, I'd have to go back and look, One game he was just a little better than 50%. The other game he was pretty good. But there was a video from the preseason 2017. This was the year Alex played. And
Schrager tweeted it out, didn't he?
What did Schrager tweet? No, I'm thinking of something different.
Okay, sorry.
What did
I thought
Schrager
he tweeted a video from practice that like Veach sent him, just like, hey, watch out, this guy.
Yeah, well, there was that. What I found today, just looking at some old box scores, was they didn't have any highlights from one of the preseason games. It was just like a 2-minute video of ESPN analyst Herm Edwards. And Herm's like, Alex Smith, He's won 40 games the last 3 years. He's like going on about. It's kind of the same thing that you hear right now. It's like Jimmy. He's third in the league in winning percentage by quarterbacks when they're available for more than 7 hours. The same thing you had with Nick Mullins, but most yards by a quarterback through the first 14 games of his. Okay, all that stuff's well and good, but we're watching it here. Now, the difference was Alex went out and threw 26 touchdowns and 5 picks that year and completed 68% of his passes.
Best year as a pro.
Okay, that's Jimmy's best year was 27 and 13.
And they won the division and hosted a game in the playoffs.
So,
like, if you told the Niners right now you'd win the division and host.
Yeah, if you told me right now Jimmy's going to give you 26 touchdowns and 5 picks, you go, okay, maybe we can wait.
Yeah.
But who's telling you this? No one's telling me that right now.